हेलो दोस्तों वेलकम टू दिस प्रेजेंटेशन फ्रॉम राइजिंग पर्ल। हम आपके होस्ट आपके दोस्त रॉय। और दोस्तों टुडे वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट सीरीज 8 जहां पे वी आर डिस्कसिंग क्वाड्रिलैटरल्स। आज है एपिसोड नंबर 13 एंड फ्रेंड्स टुडे वी आर गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट very important theorem. Now friends, as you know that we don't always talk about the importance of theorem because we believe that all theorems are important. But आपने देखिए दोस्तों from our last episode 12 में we marked that theorem very important, and today in episode 13 we are again marking this particular theorem very important. So dosto, what is this theorem and how do we prove it? Let's find out. So the theorem states that the line drawn through midpoint of one side of a triangle parallel to another side bisects the third side. So dosto, again, why are we discussing triangle in a series where we are discussing mainly quadrilaterals? So we are going to find out. Now, so dosto, pehle let us understand the theorem in more details. So line drawn through midpoint of one side of a triangle. Line drawn through midpoint of one side of a triangle. So दोस्तों एक काम करते हैं, let us first draw a triangle. So यहाँ पे दोस्तों we have drawn a simple triangle. चलिए let us call it A, B, C. So we have a triangle ABC. So the theorem states that line drawn through midpoint of one side of triangle. So दोस्तों let us pick the side AB and let us find out a midpoint. So we have a midpoint somewhere here. एक काम करते हैं, let us do this. So यहाँ पे दोस्तों you will notice that this point is the midpoint of AB, okay? And then we have drawn a line through midpoint, through point E, parallel to side BC. So ये एक ऐसी line है दोस्तों, this line is parallel to BC and it is passing through midpoint E. So this will intersect the third side AC, right? Let us call that point as F. So what is given is that E is the midpoint of AB. So AE is equal to BE because E is the midpoint of AB. The second thing what is given is that this line EF, this is parallel to BC because we have drawn this line in such a fashion कि ये line है parallel to BC. So now what we have to prove, friends, is that so this line now it touches AC at F. So the theorem is telling that the line drawn through midpoint of one side parallel to another side, it bisects the third side. So this line is now bisecting AC. That means that AF is equal to CF, or simply F is the midpoint of AC. This is what we have to prove. Now there's one very quick thing that I think we did not talk about in the last episode, was that the name of the last theorem. Now the last theorem was very important because we talked about in that theorem E and F were midpoints given, right? So we had EF as midpoints and we had to prove, right, in the last theorem we had to prove that EF is equal to half BC, that is line drawn through line segment joining the midpoints of two sides is equal to half the third side, and also it is parallel to third side. So this was from our last episode. Now दोस्तों this theorem is so important that it has a name of its own. इस theorem को दोस्तों कहते हैं midterm theorem, or sorry, this is called actually as midpoint theorem. Midpoint theorem. So the reason, friends, we wanted to talk about this is that so because of the similarity between this theorem and this theorem आज जो discuss कर रहे हैं, this theorem is कभी-कभी called as converse of midpoint theorem. So we just wanted to share that converse मतलब reverse or opposite of midpoint theorem. So we just wanted to make sure that you realize this. So इस theorem में दोस्तों हमें दी गई है only E is the midpoint और EF is parallel to BC, हम प्रूव करेंगे that F is the midpoint of AC, that is AF is equal to FC. So चलिए दोस्तों, let us find out now how we can actually go ahead and prove this. So like we always do दोस्तों, we start out with what is given. We have a triangle, चलिए कहते हैं triangle ABC, हमें एक triangle ABC दी गई है. E is the midpoint of AB. So E है midpoint of AB and F is any point on AC. F is any point on AC such that EF जो है that is parallel to BC, right? And then we join EF. So this is what we have so far, friends. Now what we need to prove? We need to prove that F is the midpoint of AC, right? That is AF is equal to FC. This is what dosto we have to go ahead and prove, right? Now friends, what we do is we do a very important construction like dosto we have done in the last presentation, last webisode. So at point C, we draw a line L such that this line is actually parallel to AB, right? And then what we do is we extend EF to meet or to intersect line L at, let us call this point D. Because EF is a straight line, अगर आप इसे extend करते हो, eventually this will intersect line L. Let us call that point of intersection D, right? So this is what we have as per our construction. Now दोस्तों आप देखोगे in parallelogram BEDC, or actually we are calling it a parallelogram, but चलिए let us look at this quadrilateral BEDC. So what we have is that जो है DE, right? DE, this is actually parallel to BC. Why? Because EF is parallel to BC by it is given, or EF and ED, they are basically the same line, right? So D is an extension of EF. So EF is parallel to BC. Since EF is parallel to BC and ED is an extension of EF, right? So we have these two parallel to each other, and also BE is parallel to CD by construction. So we have a quadrilateral BEDC such that opposite sides, both pair of opposite sides are parallel to each other. We know that is a definition of parallelogram, right? So the quadrilateral BEDC is a parallelogram. Both pairs of opposite sides are parallel, right? Now दोस्तों, if this is a parallelogram, then what do we get? So what we get is that therefore BE is equal to CD. So अगर ये parallelogram है दोस्तों, then इसका मतलब है this is equal to this. Why? Because we know opposite sides of parallelogram are equal and parallel, right? So BE is equal to CD, and also now दोस्तों the other thing is BC is also equal to DE. Now we are going to focus on this first. Why? Now दोस्तों आपको मालूम है that BE is equal to AD. Why? Because E is the midpoint, right? E is the midpoint. So दोस्तों हम देखते हैं that BE is equal to CD because ये parallelogram है, but also BE is equal to AE because E is the midpoint. So from this we conclude that CD is equal to EA. So we conclude that AE is equal to CD, right? Now अभी दोस्तों आप देखिएगा इन दोनों triangles में, in these two triangles, what do we have? We have angle AEF, angle AEF. This angle is basically equal to angle CDF. This. Why? Because AB is parallel to line L, right? And we have ED is a transversal. So alternate interior angles are equal. So we have these two angles equal. Now additionally दोस्तों, we see that these two angles are equal too because these are vertically opposite angles. हमें मालूम है that vertically opposite angles are equal. So we have this angle is equal to this angle is equal to this angle, and also AE is equal to CD because we have just seen these two are equal. So dosto, so we can say that triangle AEF is congruent to triangle CDF. Why? These two are congruent by the rule angle, angle, side. AAS congruence rule के हिसाब से we can tell angle, angle, side के हिसाब से these two triangles are congruent. ना दोस्तों, अगर ये दोनों triangle congruent होती है, then what do we get? Then immediately we know that corresponding parts of congruent triangles are equal. इसका मतलब है corresponding sides are equal, corresponding angles are equal. अगर दोस्तों so this angle is equal to this angle, so इस angle के opposite side है AF and इस angle के opposite side है FC. So we know that AF is equal to FC or CF because corresponding sides of congruent triangles are equal. So दोस्तों, हमने अभी प्रूफ की that AF is equal to FC, यानी कि दोस्तों F is the midpoint of AC. So हमने देखा दोस्तों कि हमने शुरुआत की थी एक midpoint से and the line EF parallel to BC, and we have proved that this point F is indeed the midpoint of AC. So friends, this was actually our last theorem that we wanted to talk about in this series of quadrilaterals. So friends, we hope that you have gone through all the webisodes, क्योंकि each of these webisodes में हम एक एक करके theorems we have been taking. We are explaining what theorem क्या है and we have seen how to prove those theorems. Like we always say before we conclude that अगर आपके मन में कोई भी question है, if there is anything that you have not understood, बेझिझक आप हमें comments भेजिए, send us a note. We will be more than happy to answer those for you, to help clarify those doubts for you. So दोस्तों, आज के इस वेबिसोड में इतना ही. अगले वेबिसोड में फिर मिलेंगे. तब तक के लिए शुक्रिया. धन्यवाद.